So we are starting in the next 5 minutes. So and the program we'll start with VSCode. So we'll learn about VSCode. Then after that we'll be having a break whereby they will be divided into groups. And in those groups you will be assigned some tasks like they are like questions that you'll be doing or researching on. And the break will take 5 minutes. So after the break, then we'll meet again to proceed. So if there will be enough time, the group will present. Then after presentation, then we proceed to Git. Then after learning Git, there will be another break, the last break, whereby will be assigned task that all questions that are related to Git. After that, we'll be having a session for quizzes, and finally we'll close the session on the event. So maybe you can just maybe let other people know that we are getting started. You can also even share in the social media so maybe we can get more people joining us. Okay, I think we'll now just start. Other people will join us as we proceed. Oh, sorry. So I had started with the introduction. My name is Jeff Odhiambo. So I'm from Kenya and I'm still a student. I'm taking IT, information technology. So today we are going to talk about VS Code and Git. So you learn by the end of this session, you should have the knowledge of VS Code. If you have it installed, I guess you'll have more understanding on how to work with it. Yeah, and Git as well. So VS Code is a text editor. Yeah, you can call it a text editor. Git is a version control system. So when we today we'll be covering five main topics. The first one being getting started with VS Code. The second one being VS Code tips and tricks. Third one being setting up Git and the Git basics and commands. Then using Git in VS Code. I hope everyone is seeing my screen. Is it visible to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is VS Code? That is Visual Studio Code. So we usually have Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio, and they're different things. So Visual Studio Code is a text editor, and the Visual Studio is an IDE. Um, so maybe I'll show you that as we move forward. So VS Code is a free open source code editor for the development and debugging of modern cloud and web applications. It is available for free on Linux, macOS, and Windows. There's been versions of Visual Studio Code, so there's been a release, and you can actually check that if you click on that link update. So you'll see that we have after around almost every month there's a release of Visual Studio Code. So like you can see the latest was released in January 2023, that is version 1.75, and these are the changes that were added. So like you can see at the left side that almost every month we have a new release. Almost every month there's a release there's actually a new release that is published that is being used. So it undergoes a lot of changes, more frequent changes that most of the time maybe I can say you have to be updated. You have to be following up, yeah, to the latest or the changes that are added to the VS Code. So to proceed, so there's usually release, so you can actually follow the first release of VS Code, second one up to the latest that we are having. So when I prepared this document, the latest release was on November 2022, and that was 3 days ago. And today we check over here and we have a new one that was released on January. The last time I was doing this document, this was the release that we're having, the one for November 2022. But right now we have another one that was released in January 2023. So there are frequent changes, yeah, and you also maybe you may want to download the previous ones. You can get them, but this button over here, the download one, will always download the most recent one. Yeah, the most recent one. So and I'll share the link. Maybe you can follow up on those later. Actually, to add on that, Visual Studio Code supports more than 30 programming languages, and it's the most, I can say, the widely used editor. It's the most widely used editor. It supports Java, C, Python, name it, all the other almost all languages. So it's one kind of a text editor that you can just add, just be adding the programming language extension that you need, and you just start working it straight away. So how do you install Visual Studio Code? I had said that you install it, but maybe just to go through it, how maybe if you are stuck. So for Windows, go to the Visual Studio, download the installer, and that is found at the Visual Studio Code, code.visualstudio.com/updates or /downloads, I mean. So if you go to /download, you'll be able to find an installer. So this is for Windows, this is for Linux distributions, and for Mac OS. So if you're interested in installing Visual Studio Code for Windows, just click on this button. This will download the latest version of Visual Studio Code. So after downloading that, then we just double click to run it. So it will just take some time to install. So you don't have to do much configuration on that. Okay. By default, it is installed in that directory. So you'll just find it at C, then program files, then Microsoft Visual Studio Code. So when you go to your drive C, under program files, you should find Microsoft Visual Studio Code there. And the path is usually set for you by default. And that means that you can actually run it from the terminal. So just type VSCode from any terminal, just start your CMD. And you can just do that code over there, and it will open for you the Visual Studio. So for example, if you want to open this Visual Studio in a particular directory, so you can move to that directory, say, I do have my projects and over here. So maybe I want to open this one. Yeah. So just move to that directory. Then I type code. Then I tell it to open the current directory. So if I enter that, the Visual Studio editor will be opened on that particular project. So once it is installed, you can actually manipulate, you can work with it both on the terminal, you can just be opening it on the terminal, or you can just open it manually, like you just open the file that you will need to open with the Visual Studio Code. For example, let me show you how. So I want to open this document with the Visual Studio, right click. If you right click, there's this more options. Then you'll get open with the code. So if you do that, it will open that particular folder with the Visual Studio. That's another way. Then another way is just opening it direct, which by default it will load the recent project that was used. Then you can change the directory. You can just come in the open folder, then you select the folder you want to work with. So for example, I want to work with this one. So you select the folder and it opens that. So that's how you can install it in Windows. So the documentation on how to install it on Windows, I had shared it in group, but I'll share it again. So you just follow the link and the documentation, and you'll by the end of that it will be a success. Or maybe if you have a challenge you can share, then we help you out. So for Mac, there is also a procedure now to install it on macOS. So you'll still go to the download page, then download the installer for Mac, or that package. So after downloading it, double click on the downloaded archive to expand the content. Then drag the Visual Studio Code.app to the application folder to make it available in the Launchpad. Then once you've done that, then it will be available. So you can just be using it. That's for Mac. For Linux, it has a lot of there are various ways of installing it on Linux. That will depend on the distribution that you're working on. So Linux, we have the Ubuntu, we have the Kali Linux, we have Parrot. There are a lot of Fedora. We have a lot of distribution for Linux, and each one of them have and there's a provided documentation on how to go through. And for Ubuntu, you just download the file, the Debian file, this one. After you've downloaded it, then you just go to the terminal and type sudo dpkg fni, then provide the path to the file. Then once you enter, you install that particular package or that particular, the VS Code will be installed in your machine. But if you want to learn more about that, I'll be sharing this code that will guide you on how to do that. Yeah, so for the next one, we'll be having the tricks and tips. The tricks and tips that you can use on VS Code. Why use VS Code? Why not other text editors? I majorly like using VS Code while doing a web application. It really helps a lot. Or maybe an Android application when working with Flutter or another language. But it was majorly, yes. Okay, so one of the easiest areas whereby you can use this editor, whereby it can help you a lot, is when you are doing a web application. You are writing HTML code or CSS or JavaScript or Python. Then the code, this editor will be more useful in that environment. So one thing is that it enables multiple cursors. Yeah, did someone say something?
Before we continue, I think there's a problem when I'm installing my extensions.
Oh, the extension.
Yeah.
Which one exactly?
For example, the C++ extension.
Okay, so maybe I'll take you through that once I'm done with this one.
Okay.
So okay. So I'll create a new project maybe to illustrate these tricks. So the one I'll be doing will be a web-based kind of application, a simple one. So here I have the VS Code, and here are the open files. You can close them by just click on those X or those crosses. You can expand the folders to get the files. You can also, you have a global search here whereby you can search for any text, and it will search for that word in the entire project, and you'll be able to. This is majorly useful when you're working on a project, a larger one, and you need to change a given word, and it is used in more than one file or maybe multiple files. So just come to the global search, then look for that particular word, then you replace it across the entire project. You also have the source control. We'll talk about it when we get to Git. This one will help you manage Git easily. The Git commands, I mean, very easily. There's the debug and the debug section, whereby you can use to debug the code, and there's the extension sections. So yeah, for instance, you want to install an extension that maybe has an extension, just search for that particular one, and it will load a related extension. Then you can just look for the one you need. Okay, for a start, the one that I recommend, maybe for this class, maybe if you start, you will need this go live, a live server. So the work of this live server is usually to reload. So if you're working on a static site, then you don't have to be refreshing the browser. So you just type, then the go live will, it's just called live server. So if you search for live, you get that live server. Yeah, we love this live server and install it. So it will be refreshing every time there's a change. So when you're typing and there's a change, you don't have to refresh the browser. And the work for saving, you don't have to be saving every time. You have this auto save. Such that when after you've done some work, then the editor itself will save that particular work automatically. So you don't have to be saving like Control S, then Control R, refreshing the browser. That all that work is reduced. You also have, yeah, this one I'll explain them later. So for now, I'll only focus on this Explorer, whereby you'll be using it to view your file or the directory you're working at, the global search, and the extension area. Then we'll also have account here, so you can log into your GitHub account, such that when you push a code, it goes direct to your GitHub account. So you don't have to maybe run the command git push, git pull, git blah blah blah. So this one, it does all the work for you, and you can do the settings through this. If you want to change maybe the fonts and the theme and everything like that. So for example, if I want a larger font, I can just change this to maybe 20. So if I change it to 20, then the font size of everything that I'm working with here is increased. So if I want a larger font, I can actually do that. Or there's a shortcut I can use that is control and then greater than bracket. So if I do control plus, yeah, control plus, it enlarges the entire directory or the entire view that you are working at. So those are some of the things you can check. So maybe I'll quickly create a project to illustrate those tricks that you can use on the Visual Studio. So I'll do a new folder. I'll call it so I'll open that folder. So we are having a blank folder. So to add a file, just click on this symbol. That will add a file, or you can just move to file, then new file. So there are various ways of doing that. So you can just come to this and click it and provide the name of the file. Or you can, maybe let me enlarge it so that you can see it. Or you can click on the file, then select on the new file. So then you can select the type of the file, or you just can just type direct. So maybe you can have another file called about.html. Sorry. So once you have that index file and you want to write some code, for example, an HTML code, HTML usually have a syntax that maybe you have the HTML tag, then you have the head, then within the head you have the title. Yeah? Then you provide the title that you're working with. Then we have a body, then you have some text in the body. So with VS Code, you don't have to be doing the typing, right? There are shortcuts that can make your work very easy and fast. You can increase the productivity. So there's this shortcut. Just do one exclamation mark. When you enter, it will generate for you the entire syntax of the HTML. Or you can do just type HTML, then you'll have that HTML5. And once you enter, you'll do the same thing. Or if you just want the normal HTML, then you just click on this and you'll have that. Okay. So for VS Code, you don't have to be typing the greater than symbol, then the tag, closing symbol, user closing tags. So just can just type them the tag you need direct. So for example, if I need a div, I just type a div. Yeah, and that will create for me that div tag. Okay. So that's another thing that you have about this. So when I talk of the multi-cursor, this is what I meant. So we are having this code over here, and you want to make some change. So for example, you want to change this action from the word action to maybe something else. So VS Code allows you to edit multiple sections of the same file at the same time. So maybe you can just use the Alt key, then select the areas that you want to make a change from, and you'll see it selecting multiple places at the same time. So there's this cursor here, there's another cursor, there's another one, another one. So if you start typing, that change will apply to all those sections at the same time. So I want to add maybe action, something like name. If I do that, that change will apply to all the places whereby there was that particular cursor. So that's what we mean by multiple cursor. So you can make multiple changes in the same file at the same time. For example, maybe I want to change this name. Yeah, I want to change that particular name. I can use the Control D. So I'll highlight what I want. I want this. I want to delete that particular name. So use Control, then D, then it will select the second occurrence of that particular word you are searching for. If I do a D again, it will select all those files. If I do backspace, it will delete all the words that have been highlighted. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is just highlighting them, you holding the Alt key. So you highlight the first one, holding the Alt key, you can highlight the second word you need. So maybe that, maybe this, and another one here, maybe another one down here. And now when I start typing, then the same thing happens. So I change all those words by just one type. So I can override this highlighted words and add another word whereby we are having a cursor. So for example, I start typing Jeff or something like, yeah, Jeff. You'll realize that all these highlighted words are being replaced and there's another Jeff added here. So you can actually combine this technique such that if you want to replace something and add it in another place at the same time, then you can achieve that. So I want to replace this active and I want to replace this action and I want to replace this one as well. And I want to add something at that point and something else at that point and something else at that point. So I can do all those operations at the same time. And I shall have replaced the first word, second word, third word, and I shall have added that same word at the end of the places where I needed them. So that's one of the ways in which VS Code can make your work easier. Not sure what is the next one way. So the second one is generation of this code snippets. So there are shortcuts. There are shortcuts that maybe you type, then it generates for you a code upon entering or pressing tab. So maybe there's this link, I'll say it, that you will get maybe more samples. So here I had worked with I had shown you one, which was exclamation mark, the exclamation mark, and you can see the preview of what that particular abbreviation will generate. So you can see that preview over here, and actually what we are doing is on the other side. So if I wanted to generate a code, maybe a card for those who have worked with Bootstrap, I wanted to generate a card with the both the header, the body, and the footer. So I can just do dot, that will create a div class, and you can see that on the other abbreviation side. So I'll just do dot card, and you can see an abbreviation created a div with a class card. Any question? Then within the card, I can have a title. Yeah, and after the title, I can have an H1 tag. Then outside it, I can have a body, card body. And within the body, I have a paragraph with some random text. Then finally, after that, I can have a footer, maybe with a button. So if I enter this, let me go back. If I enter that, then you'll see that particular code generated for us. So we'll be having a card, then within the card is a title with the H1 tag, then there's another one, the card body, and there's a footer. So these shortcuts or these abbreviations that you use, they can fasten your coding process. So if you want to maybe you are in a hurry, you want to develop a given system, you've been given a particular system to develop, and there's no much time. Yeah, then you can use those particular shortcuts to maybe do things more quickly. For example, if right now I have an extension for Bootstrap, this Bootstrap 4. I have okay, let me show you. I have this Bootstrap 4, and I want to create a Bootstrap file. If I just type B4, it will create for me a file with a that is linked to Bootstrap, CSS, and all the jQuery, all the jQueries as well. So if I start typing, maybe I need to write a navbar. I need to do a navbar, and I don't have much time left. I just type nav. If I start by nav, you'll see all the suggestion, and when you select them, you'll be seeing the preview on the left side. So there's this now complete, now fail, now that. So if you enter, then this will just be generating for you the code. This is usually used when you want to speed up the process of developing, and VS Code helps there a lot. It really helps a lot. It has that intelligence, whereby can also, when there's an error somewhere, it can tell you. You can just save maybe by just looking. So, for example, I will just make one error intentionally so that I can see what I illustrate what I mean. So, we'll have a style that is made from CSS, the CSS syntax, and I'll just start by maybe typing something that is not related to what that does not conform to the syntax of CSS. So maybe I can just add color, and the color is maybe red or something like that. So you see, it will highlight that this one is not known, this is an unknown property. Or maybe I've forgotten to close that, and you'll see this one. You'll be having a lot of problem down here. So maybe another area, I wanted to generate all the errors so that you can see them. You can actually see that highlighted yellow line. That is for unidentified or unknown properties. And actually at the bottom right, there's a warning. So we have one warning, and if you open it, it will tell you that there's one unknown property call in the CSS. Yeah. So actually it helps you see the errors that maybe your file might be having. It actually tells you everything when you are moving from one place. When you make an error, it will tell you that. Okay, let me create a file that we can make error easily. So we are having a Python file here, right? And Python it relies a lot on the spacing. So I'll define a function. If we just use the declaration def and there's no name to that function, then that's not conform to the syntax of Python. And you now see this red underline. Okay, if I give it name like get max, right? And I fail to provide that colon, and I start something here and I say A is equal to maybe uh, something like that. Now you'll be having an error at this particular point. It will be telling you that there's expected less than that opening bracket, which is not the case. What was there was that column. Then this one to move a step in. Yeah, of course the bracket, it was also that we needed that. So this particular editor, it will help you know whereby you are making maybe errors. It will help you know if there are any errors. And in my case, it will even suggest for you the code that was supposed to be there. So if I start writing, try to guess what was I trying to do, and it suggests some code that just press tab and it will complete for you that particular word. So that's the power of VS Code. Let me go to this another point. Yeah, I had talked of keyboard shortcuts. So there's the first one, a control P, and we are saying VS Code supports various keyboard shortcuts, which allow developers to quickly and efficiently perform common action and tasks within the code editor. And which can be used to navigate the interface, write, edit code, debug a code, and to do more particular operations. And here are sample examples. There are really lots of shortcuts, but I just wanted to focus on this few. So there's the control P. I'm back to this code. Let me correct it. Then we start explaining what is happening. So we have control P. If I do control P, it will open for me the recent files or the files that are the recently opened files. So I can navigate. If I wanted to work with Python, so let's say I'm having a project that's having multiple files, a lot of files, and I want to navigate from one file to another. So upon pressing Control P, I'll be able to move from one file to another. So I want to open Python. Yeah, I'll just be in Python. I want to open button.html. I just use Control P to navigate between the recently opened file or the recent files that are in that particular project. There's another command which is Control Shift P. Yeah, this one will open the command palette that which allows developers to quickly access various command features. So Control Shift P. The first one, remember, Control P was for accessing files, for navigating between the recent files or finding a file by name. So for example, that is Control Shift P. Control P, I want to find Python. I type P and it returns the files that are containing that particular letter or word that I'm looking for. But Control Shift P will open for me this kind of terminal or something like that. So in this, I can be able to execute or one task that I do maybe most of the time. So for example, I want to create an environment, a Python environment. So instead of executing that command for creating the Python environment that we'll learn later in the another phase, so I just click on create environment, then I give it the name or the environment type and the path. And I just relax and an environment is created for me. So that's whereby you can use that Control Shift P to execute scripts or to execute commands that you need to do most, or maybe the commands that you use most of the time. Another shortcut that we are having is Control Shift Tab. Control Shift tabs can also do the same work as the Control P. And the only difference that in Control P, you can search for the file that you need. But Control Shift tab, there you cannot search. You can just be moving between the files, but there's no that option for searching. Yeah. There's also Control tab, which also do the same thing. And another one, we have Control Shift N. That one will open a new window. So we have Control Shift N, open a new window for VS Code. So you can actually open a project in this first one, then open another project in the second one. But I'll be sharing the shortcuts or the link to the notes that has all of them. Control D, we have used it in the previous example. So it selects the next occurrence of a word. So in this our case, in the index one, so we want to find the next occurrence of the word action. Use Control Shift D. Control, that is, let me confirm. Control D, I mean. So if you select the word action and you press Control D, it will highlight the second occurrence of that particular word you're looking for. If I press it again, Control D, it will highlight another instance of that particular word. Okay, let's test with a different one. We have drop item, this one. And we want to find the next occurrence should be the one below it. So if I press Control D, it will highlight that. Then I expect it to highlight the second last one. If I pressed Control D again. So Control D enables you to select the next occurrence of a word. That's maybe in a case whereby you want to replace them or to edit them. So Control Shift L, instead of selecting them one by one, so Control Shift L selects all of them at once. Let me minimize, let me close this one so I illustrate. I want to look for the word active. So I want this editor to look for any occurrence of active and highlight all of them. So I use Control Shift L. So that will look for all the occurrences of active and highlight all of them. Okay, I want to test for the drop down. All the occurrence of drop down and highlight them. So you'll see all of them are highlighted. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Maybe someone to confirm.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that's another shortcut that you can use most of the time. So if you want to change something and you don't want to, you just want to change the entire word in the file, yeah, you can just use that Control Shift L, or you can use the find shortcut, that's Control F, yeah, and it will highlight all of it. Then you just provide the word you want to replace it with. So if I want to replace it with the maybe something, just type that word over there, and then this one. The first one is will be replace them one by one. So you'll be replacing the first one, replace the second one, yeah, like that. But this the other option, this other option here will replace all the occurrences with the word provided at once. So if I press that, everything is replaced. Yeah, that's another shortcut. So there's the one for finding and replacing, there's one for highlighting the occurrences, and all those are the shortcuts. Let me check the second last. You have Control F, that is for finding a text within a file. I will illustrate that. Control H for finding and replacing. Control H, the same thing, finding and replacing. And the Control F is for finding only. So you have Control F to just find. So if you want to replace this symbol that you can use to open the replace uh, kind of a text box. But if you want to have one that has all of them, just do Control H and you'll have the find and replace text boxes. Another shortcut is the Control Shift I. So this will open the integrated developer console. Control Shift I. Yeah, actually, I mean, okay. Maybe let me check for the Windows. Control Shift I. In my case, I don't know why it's not writing on this one. Yeah, maybe I'm having a problem. Now, let me ask, if you want to comment some code, you've worked with many files and you've done a lot of changes, but don't need a section of the code and you want to comment it out. And most of the time for HTML, for example, this is a comment. We have this opening, there's this less than symbol, exclamation, then hyphen, then there's the closing tag over here. So how do you do that manually? So should you maybe highlight many sections, then provide provide that particular pattern? How about you do that pattern over there like that to comment something? Actually, you don't need that particular kind of stress, like to comment something. So in this IDE, you can just highlight the section that you need. So for example, I want to comment this list. Yeah. I'll just use the control, then the forward slash, then all of that section will be commented out. That's one another shortcut that we can use that can fasten your process. You are working with something, you don't have time to go through each line commenting them. Just highlight all of them, then Control I, we comment, Control I to uncomment them. Yeah, and that's another a great feature that is offered by VSCode. To undo, when you want to undo changes, just use Control Z or Control Z to undo everything, and that will take you. This will be like taking you to the previous words or the content of the previous content of that particular file. And to redo, you can use Control R, Control Y, I mean. Actually, you can see that you can open the recent file without having to open the folder. Just look for the recent file that you're working on, then select it, then it will be loaded. So you can proceed. So to undo, Control Z, to redo, Control Y. Control A, select all that one everyone knows, then the Control C to copy, Control V to paste, Control X to cut, and all those. So all those shortcuts can be used in this particular ID. We also have another feature, which is the Markdown preview or the MD preview. Most of the documentation is done in kind of in a Markdown kind of language. So if you visit most of the sites, or maybe your GitHub account, you'll probably should have seen this. So if I go to GitHub, if I go to github.com, maybe and I open any project, for example, this one. This is a file which is written in the Markdown kind of format. Yeah, this README file, the README file. So Visual Studio can preview this kind of files. So I'll just copy the content of this file to illustrate, and I'll create another README file here, and I will be having that content right there. So if you want to preview something, if you want to, okay, okay. So if you want to preview this particular, you want to see how will it appear, how will it be rendered? Yeah. So we have this part over here, open a preview, and that will show you how it will appear when rendered. So this the raw on the left side we have the raw code or the raw text. Then on the right hand side we have the preview. So you can actually preview these files in this particular ID. Another feature that I forgot to mention is that you can split this IDE. So you can have one code on this one side, another one on the left side. You can also divide it. Maybe if you want to display something, you want this text index to be at the bottom. Just drag it to the bottom and it will be open at the bottom. You need this file to be at this, but maybe in the middle. Yeah. So you can divide your screen. So let's say you have a larger screen, maybe a larger monitor, and you want to display, you are debugging and you are trying to see where there's a problem. You can actually split, or you can have multiple sections within the same editor. So you have one file, open it at place A, another file, place B, place C, and you can actually run all of them separately. So for example, I have this one, this execute button. You can run this file, can preview this file, I can run this one. Yeah, so you within this particular editor, you can actually split the screen. And the splitting you can do it either horizontally or vertically. There's another thing maybe I wanted to touch on. I've explained the markdown. So we have got the visualizing CSS selector. So selector defines what HTML elements to style with the subsequent properties. Selector can become pretty complicated and can sometimes be challenging, right? So for example, I have a CSS. Let me just explain what we mean by selecting. So we are working with the CSS. Most of the time, developers do write CSS a separate file than linking it to the HTML file. So let's say I'll have one within this particular file, the same way I did it before. So I want to style um, another div here. So I'm going to create a class called container. And within that particular div, I'll have another div called row, and another div called column. So I want to style this column in CSS. And I'm really not sure if this selected column that is going to be affected. So if I start typing my code here, like that, this particular highlight over here that I'll get, okay, maybe I can do it with the elements to illustrate. That will be much better. So I'm having a nav. Then the nav we have the UL, then we have some list, which we have then A. So we are having this particular kind of format. And I want to style this particular list. So I can go to nav, UL, then list to style that. So if I do nav, UL, then list, this will be, you'll be seeing this highlighted kind of format on what will be, what the selector will style actually. So you'll be seeing nav outside. I don't know how I can highlight it. So we have nav over here, then the unlisted items over here, or the unordered list, then you have the list item at the bottom. So this preview, it shows you what the kind of format that will be taken while styling your HTML. And if you look at this keenly, you'll be having the nav, UL list, then that will imply that you are doing the correct thing. So if you actually check the syntax over there, the arrangement, and then cross-check it to what we have here, then you are saying that we are styling the correct element. So it can be used to preview. And when you check on this particular code snippet, the one that I've taken the image of, so you are having section, article, then paragraph. And here we are having a preview that is telling you that we are going to style a section that is having a class article within it, then there's a paragraph inside it. So it can actually preview. It is visualizing what you are trying to style, right? Yeah, here we are having P as main text, then it is telling you that we're going to style a paragraph with an ID main text. So when you are writing this kind of CSS code, then you get a preview of what is going to be affected, and that can maybe help you maybe in the debugging or knowing why a particular code is not behaving the way it should be. So we'll be having a break. And in this break, we'll be having some questions. I actually don't know how many people have joined. Let me check. So you're having 43 but, participants. So we'll be having groups of 5. So the first, that will mean that we'll be having around 9 groups. So a group of 5, 9 groups. So there's a form that I'm going to share that asks some questions. Some might need research, Yeah, some might need some little research that we'll be doing in the groups, and the break will be 5 minutes. We'll be having a 5 minute break. So this is the link to the file. Let me copy it and share it. So we should be having presentation, but because of time, I'll just use the work you submitted in the form to check. So I'll also share that with other members so that maybe if someone had a similar question that was done by group one, they can have access to it and they can see how the group one approached it. Also, maybe if a group seven have a question that was addressed by group five, they can also be able to see what group five did. So next we'll be moving to Git. So we're going to learn what version control is. We're going to understand the distributed version control system, and we're going to create a new Git project and configure it. We're going to make and track changes to code using Git, and then use Git to recover from simple mistakes. So what's a version control system? We realize that this is a program, or you can say that when you talk about a system are just a set of programs that perform particular tasks. And in this kind of scenario, a version control system are a set of programs that track changes to a collection of files. They are just majorly used for managing or keeping track of the changes that are made within a file or a project. But majorly they track files because when we talk about directory, they are made of it is not tracking the directory, it is tracking the files inside that particular direction. And one goal of this version control system is to, one goal of the VCS is to easily recall the earlier version of individual files. So it can check the file in the current state and can also track the earlier versions of that particular file. And we have another name for version control system, which is the software configuration management system. And if you look at the URL for Git, I hope my screen is visible. Can you guys see my screen? Someone confirm?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So another name for version control system is software configuration management system. And you will realize that when you look at the URL for downloading the Git, when you check on the URL for downloading this Git, you'll get Git-CSM. So someone will be wondering what is this CSM? That simply stands for software configuration management. That's another name for version control system. Now, what is Git? And we say Git is a distributed version control system that allows developers to track and manage changes in their code. And we had said that version control system are just a set of programs that are used to track changes within a collection of a file, changes to a collection of files. And when we say that it is a distributed, Git is a distributed VCS, that means that you can work on the files locally, right? So you've done getting it. So you've initialized some repository. So you're working on it locally. And you can do this maybe doing it locally as machine A, then you push it later to a remote repository somewhere in machine B. Yeah. The same way. So when you say it is distributed, it is distributed in the sense that you can work at you can have the same project in your local machine, and you can also have a copy in a remote repository somewhere. So it is you are having the same source code, but it is distributed within multiple systems or within multiple machines, right? So what are the features of a version control system? One, it allows you to track and manage changes made to a project. Yeah. Two, you can view changes made to a project, when they were made and who made them. I'll illustrate that. I will be illustrating that one when we get to VSCode. So when someone makes a change, you'll be able to say who did the change and where was that change implied, or where that particular person change, right? It also have the ability to include a message and to explain what change you're making. So most of the time we're doing a commit, you have to provide a message describing or a message that is describing what that change is about. Yeah. Another feature of version control system is that you can retrieve the past versions or the entire project with individual files. So you are done with the project and you are at a particular stage and you want to retrieve what you did in a particular version, you can actually do that using these version control systems. You can also create branches, yeah, and experiment without affecting the main branch. So maybe let's say you are doing a system for someone, maybe an e-commerce website, an e-commerce site, then you are having the first version, right? Imagine so you are having the first version and you've released that particular version and you are trying to figure out, you're saying, oh, what if we make this change or we make this particular feature, we add this feature to this particular site of our source system of ours, how will it behave? So since you are not sure of the outcome, you can create a branch and do that particular change in that particular branch, and such that maybe if things don't go well, you can still undo the changes and move back to the main branch and proceed with the work without affecting the main branch. You can also do a git merge, you can add a tag to versions, and you can facilitate collaboration among teams. Yeah. Let me give maybe a brief story of an experience. Yeah, then this from this we can learn the importance of maybe version controls before move to the next slide. So, you are a developer. Most of you want to learn how to develop or you want to learn how to code. Yeah? And you have a client, and the client tells you that he or she needs a system that is able to perform task A, B, C, D. Yeah. So you go sit down and draft that plan. When you do the design and you do everything and you now completed the site. And you bring that particular project to the client. And the client look at it. It does not necessarily mean that it must be a client. It can be a client or maybe the sponsor of that particular project or the project manager. Yeah. So it looks at your project and it says, no, I don't like this one. Maybe you could approach it in a different way. Yeah. And so you go back and try to check. You try to put those new changes that is demanded by the client. Now we're done with the version 2, and now you are bringing that version 2 to the client. And the client is telling you that, by the way, and the way that version 1 was a very nice one, maybe you can work with it. And you had deleted it from your system. Maybe you are saying, since this is not required, excuse me, let me do away with it. So I just do a new one, right? And now you are done with the new one, and the client is telling you that needed that version 1, and that you should just go ahead and publish the version 1. So in that particular scenario, what what can you do? Yeah. Yeah. So in that particular scenario is why now you can use Git to help you. That's because it keeps track of all the versions of the system that you're working with. So you can have version 1 and you are done and it's not good, or maybe the client does not accept it, just to do another version of the same system. Such that maybe if the client now rejects version 2 and tells you that he need you to publish or to deploy the version 1 of the system that you did, so you can actually save to different versions of the same system. Here are the Git basic commands, or maybe terminologies. We'll start with the terminologies. So when we are talking of a working tree, we are talking of a working tree. Working tree, these are terms that you normally hear when working with the Git. So this working tree refers to a set of nested directories and files that contain the project that is being worked on. So I'll open one project that is having Git, that is being tracked by Git, for instance. So I don't know which one to go from. maybe I'll open this one, but I'll not be making changes to it. Yeah, not be making changes to it. So we are having this project. So when we're talking of a working tree, and here in the explanation, we are saying that working tree refers to the set of nested directories and files that contain the project that is being worked on. Yeah. So nested directories and files. Yeah. So this a directory having another directory within it, having a file. So this a nested directory and files. So when it when you're talking of a working tree, this is simply the working tree. You actually can generate that when you are here at the version control. There's an option here for working trees. You can actually check that. Create a working tree. Let's see. Yes. So working tree simply refers to that particular folder whereby you are currently working in that contains just nested folders and files of the project that you are currently dealing with, the project that you are currently working on. Yeah, actually, I could have generated one so we can see. Okay. So, for example, this is one of the usage of Git. So here you can see actually see the messages, the changes that were being made, who was making them, when were they made, and you can also have the hash for those particular comments. So you realize that here we are having a branch. Yeah. So there's this main branch, then there's another branch that was created. Yeah, that was merged at that particular point, and the development proceeds and merge at that particular point, development proceeds, another branch created. Yeah, so actually you can trace how the development is being done or our particular project is being done at each stage. Yeah. So all those are kept by this version control system. Yeah. So in talk of a repository, yeah, a repository refers to the a directory located at the top of a working tree, where Git keeps all the history and metadata for the project. That's self-explanatory. So yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think your screen is lagging behind. I think we are still on page 1.
John.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the problem on my internet or everyone is facing the issue.
Do you see topic 4 like Git? It's the title is Git Basics. Do you see that? Is that what you are saying?
No, I think I'm in page 1 where I see what is Git. I think this is the first slide you started with.
And I'm currently in a different one. Is everyone saying the same thing? That the first page, or do you people see a different thing?
I can see the page 4.
You can see 4.
Which means I have a
Yes,
problem
yes, I
with
can
my
see Git
network.
basics.
Let me try
Maybe
and fix
just
it.
refresh. Okay, okay, it's okay.
Okay.
So another terminology with the gate is the hash. So this is a number that is produced by a hash function that represent the content or the content of a file or an object. Yeah. So this is usually important when tracking the changes made to a file. So an hash is produced by a function and it represents the contents of the file. So let's have illustration here. We are having this file named let me open one. We are having this file reviews.py, right? The content of this file is represented by a hash, yeah, such that when you make a change to this file, maybe let me say I remove these lines of the code, the hash that will be produced for this file after the change will not be the same as the initial hash. Therefore, Git will now say that there has been a change made to this particular file. And if you check on this source control, and you check on the source control, you will find out that, yeah, we have view here, and you can actually see where the change was made. So you see, we are having this negative kind of symbol, symbolizing, and this red line symbolizing that these 4 lines were removed from that particular file. If you add something to the file, that will also change its hash, right? So maybe I decide to add something, and do that, then I add something, or maybe I just copy this line and I paste it again. So I have more of that, or more of those lines, right? So I'll be seeing this green line over here. Yeah. This green lines just simply represents the additional lines, or the lines that were not previously, that were not in the previous version of the file, but have been introduced to that particular current file. And if you check, you'll see now we are having these plus symbols. Yeah. Let me make it larger. We're having these plus symbols. Yeah. Telling you that these are new lines that have been added to the file. Yeah. So this track is kept by Git. So that version control system, it tracks the changes that you make to a particular system or to a file, yeah. Changes that are made to a file. So we also have an object. We have 4 types of objects in Git. So there's a blob, which usually just refers to an ordinary file. Maybe let's say it contains an ordinary file. There's a tree. A tree is an object. There's a commit. It's also an object, and a tag is an object. When you talk of commit, for those who have done maybe database before, maybe you've come across that word commit. To commit is to write the new change permanently to maybe to a disk, or to make that change permanent to write it somewhere, maybe in a disk. Yeah. So like in this scenario where we are working with the Git, commit is an operation that sends the latest changes to a source code. So it's like you are saying, up to this point, we are good. Yeah. So save these changes and push them to the repository, right? So it's like you are doing a checkpoint. You are saying up to this particular point, yeah, everything is okay. And now push that to repository. So every time you are doing a commit, you are saving the latest changes to a repository. Yeah. Another terminology is the branch. Yeah. And a branch just refers to series of linked commits. Yeah. So series of linked commits. The most recent commit on a branch is called the head. So the head always points to the most recent commit. So for example, if I come to this my editor and I check this code, yeah, I want to generate that tree that we were having before, that which was tracking. Yeah. So we are having this is a branch. Yeah. So let me come to looking for a place where I can illustrate it well. So we are having branches here, right? Yeah, yes, a good example. So we are saying a branch are just series of connected commits. Yeah, they are series of linked commits. So for example, this one over here, this is a branch. Yeah, this one is another branch. I really don't know if you are seeing what I'm presenting. Can you see what I'm presenting?
Yes, we can see what you're presenting.
Okay, so this a branch. They're just series of linked commits. So this commit, another commit, another commit, that forms a branch. Okay. Then we also have another branch at this point, which is that this commit linked to this, to that, yeah. So this commits, when linked, they form a particular branch, yeah. And this other one also forms another branch, which they are merged at a particular point. Yeah. So like just like in a tree, a normal tree do have branches, right? Yeah. I've not seen a tree without a branch. Maybe there is one. So branch just refers to series of linked commits. I hope everyone understands that. And when we talk of a remote and Git, a remote is a name referencing to another Git repository. So for example, we have you have your repository in the local machine. Yeah. And there's another remote repository in the cloud, for example, in GitHub, for example. So GitHub is a cloud platform, yeah, acting as the remote. So it stores your code centrally somewhere in the cloud, such that when you make changes, you can work with your files offline. Then once you're done and you are back online, then you can synchronize them to the one in the remote repository. So a remote just refers to a name or named reference to another Git repository. So yeah, that's the simple definition, I think. So we also have commands, subcommands, and options in Git. So there are commands, subcommands, and options in Git. So a command refers to the first part. This part is a command. Git is a command, right? Checkout is a subcommand, and then -b is an option. Then a branch, that's now an argument. Right? So Git operations are performed using commands like git push, git pull. So in this case, git is the command, push is a subcommand. Git is a command, pull is a subcommand. So git in the command, it specifies the operation that you want to do, right? So a command usually specifies what you want to do. Then, okay. So like you are saying, I want to use git. Git is a command. Then now, what do you want git to do? Then that's also specified by the subcommands. And if there are options that you want to provide, options are usually supplied using the hyphen or the double hyphens. So hyphen is in this example, -b, and there's a double hyphen in this get reset add. So this is an option, a subcommand, and a command. So these are also terminologies that are used in Git. We have sample Git command. I don't know if all of you have Git installed in their machines. So Git command lines allows users to interact with the Git repository via the command line interface. So the first command that maybe you can run is to check for the versions of Git that is currently installed in your machine. So to do that, you just run git -version. So I'll quickly do that to illustrate. Okay. So if I do git -version, it should return the version of the currently installed Git in my machine. And I'm getting version 2.38.1, right? So that's what you'll get if you run that particular command. Another one is to configure. Actually, before you do any commit, you have to configure Git, and you have to provide the name and the email of whoever is doing the changes. So that configuration is done to the global variable username and the user email. So to do that, you just do git config global. Then you just do username, then from, yeah, that's user.name, then you provide the username. Then you provide that name you want to use. So for example, my name. Yeah, and that name will be applied. You can do the same for the email. So ensure that before you use Git to make any kind of commit, ensure you configure the name and the email. Because if you don't have them configured, you'll get an error. Yeah, you'll get an error and it will not be able to commit. Yeah, so in that way, I have configured my Git. I've provided my name and I've provided my email. So to do that, if you want to check the changes, there's this other command, git config list. This will list the global configuration, such as the name and the email. So if you want to confirm that all these changes were did take effect, so you can just run git config hyphen list, okay? And you'll have all those global variables starting from your name. Let me check here. So we have this name over here, among other configuration that I've made. Okay. Another command that we'll be using most of the time is git init. Git init, what it does, it initializes a repository. It initializes a So when you want to initialize a repository, use the command git init. So I'll do that with a file, a folder that is not currently being tracked. So I'll open the one we just created right now when we were doing VS Code, which was web test. So this folder is not being tracked by Git, right? And we want Git to track it. So allow me to delete this virtual environment. Yeah, so we want to track these two files, yeah? So we'll initialize the repository first before staging these particular files. So if I come here, I'll get this option for initializing repository. What this will do, it will run that command git init, but we're not going to do that right now. We'll do that another session where I'll be handling how to work with the Git on VS Code. So I'll do that in the terminal. So I'm having index.html, python.py, and readme. Yeah. And I want to initialize the repository. I just do git init, and that will do the initialization of that will create a repository for that particular project. And if I view this and I'll get a .git directory somewhere. Okay. So there'll be a .git directory that is created within this particular folder. Another way of doing that, if you don't, by default, it usually creates a branch main. What if you don't want that branch main? You can provide the name of the branch. Yeah. So you can do git init, but then you provide initial branch, then you give it a name. So I can decide to call mine Jeff. So instead of it creating branch main, it will create branch Jeff. So just do git init, initial branch, then give it the name of the initial branch. You can do that. Git clone is usually used to create a copy of an existing repository in your local machine. So there's a repository existing maybe somewhere remotely or maybe in a cloud, and you want to create a copy of that repository to your local machine, then you use git clone. So how that works is that you go to, let me move to a directory whereby I want to make the change first. So you go to maybe that remote repository or maybe GitHub, for instance. So once I'm in GitHub and I want to clone a repository, I want to make a copy of a particular repository. So I'll go to maybe one of my repositories. So for example, I want to clone this one. So I want to clone this one. So I'll just simply come here to this HTTPS, then I'll take the URL of that particular repository, then I go to my terminal, then I just do git clone, then I provide that path, then this will create a copy of that project in my local machine. And you can see that it's done. So it will download all those files and the entire project will be downloaded and the copy will be created within my machine on the local machine. Okay, I'll not wait for it to finish. So I'll go to the second one. And the second one is the third one, get add. So get add, it adds files to the staging area. So there are files that you want to keep track of. So if you want to keep track of given files and you want to get to keep track of them, you do get add, you stage them. That's usually referred to as staging. So you add a file to a staging area by running the command get add. So let me illustrate that in the Visual Studio here. So I want to keep track of index and I want to keep track of all of them, for instance. I'll just do get add and I'll add all of them. And you'll see all the status, something has changed. Yeah. You are now seeing a symbol, some symbol A, and initially there was a different symbol, right? And if you come here, they are now staged. Now you can see staged changes. They are having index, Python, and that. And if I run get status here, to check on the status, then we are seeing that we are currently new files have been created. Like it's keeping track of these 3 new files. Yeah, I can undo that. And now the status go back to the initial one. So they are untracked now. Now they are no longer tracked by Git. And now you can see even the colors change. These are untracked files. So if you want to keep track of a file, you add them to the staging area by running the command git add. So maybe I love to move fast due to time. So this is a commit. We had talked of commit earlier. That is saving changes to the repository with a brief message describing the changes. You run that using the git commit. So we'll do git add. So after adding them, now we commit those changes. Now we do git commit. Then we provide a message. The message has to describe whatever change you are doing. Yeah. I'll not follow that for now because of time. So I'll just give it any name. Any message. So if I enter now, this change has now been made. So this the first commit which has been created. And if I go to this commits, I'll see that with the message initial commit made 10 seconds ago. Yeah, and it was made by me. And that's the message and this is the date. If you want to go to the commit details, you can come here and you can actually see that the file history, the branches, you can literally see everything from that particular point. Another thing that we want to talk about is git status. I've shown you how it works. It is used to check the status of the working tree. We have git diff. Git diff is used to show the differences between the working directory and the last commit version of the code. So the same thing we were doing earlier in the VS Code, whereby we was able to see the differences that all the changes that were made to a file, that is done by git diff. So if I remove this section of the code, I've removed that style and I want to see the changes that were made to that particular file index. So I just do git diff and it will tell me the changes that were made. So if, for instance, it's telling us that this section were removed. So that's what git diff does. Git log just to give you a history, a commit history. How were you committing? Yeah, how are you committing? That is done by git log. Then you have get branch that is used to view the branches. Checkout is to switch from one branch to another. So for example, I want to create another branch, right? So I want to do a check out another branch. Okay. So a new branch has been created and we now switch to that new branch. If you want to confirm at the bottom here, I don't know if this can be enlarged. Yes. So I want you to have a keen look at the bottom. Yeah. Now we are currently working at the branch named Jeff, and we are having two branches. There's the main branch that was created initially, and now we've created another branch, and now we've switched to that branch. We are now using that different branch called Jeff. Now we are no longer using main. So to switch between branches, use the checkout sub command. So get checkout, then the name -b, then the name of the branch you want to switch to. So you can move from one branch to another using that particular command. Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yes, we
So
can hear
we
you.
also okay, thank you. We also have another command that is git merge. So git merge is usually used to merge the changes from one branch and another branch into, like you are merging the changes in different branches into one, merging branch A to branch A or branch A to branch B. That's most of the time you'll see it on GitHub and also when you are doing your projects. If you are having branch A, so maybe there's a development that is working on a given branch, another team working on a different branch. When they're done, they can merge those changes to form one change or a big change actually. Git pull. What does Git pull do? It downloads the latest changes from a remote repository and merge them into the local repository. So you are having a GitHub account, yeah, and in the GitHub you are having a remote repository over there that is storing your files in the cloud. You are working in a team. So person A has done his changes and has pushed to that remote repository in the GitHub. You as a person C, you want to use those changes that were made. So you'll run git pull to synchronize those changes into your local machine. So git pull will pull the latest changes that have been pushed to that remote repository. Then you'll be able to synchronize them with the project that you are at to have the latest changes, right? So git pull is usually used to just to download the latest changes from a remote repository to merge them into a local repository. Git push has upload the local changes to a remote repository. Not the difference. To pull, you are pulling the latest changes from the remote repository to your local machine. Push is to upload the changes. So you've made some changes in your project and you want them to be pushed, or you want them to be written in the remote repository in the cloud. So you use git push. Fork. To fork is to create a personal copy of a repository on a GitHub. Now, someone was asking me the difference between git fork and git clone. Yeah. When you fork a project or a repository on the from GitHub, for instance, right? You fork someone's work. If you push that work, it will not affect whatever that person was working on. You are creating a personal copy, and this personal copy is not going to affect the original copy that the person was having. When you clone, you are creating a copy of that, but when you actually do a git push, it will directly affect that project. Fork creates a personal copy that you can work on without affecting the original repository, while clone, when you are working with a clone and you do a push, when you do a push, it will affect that repository that you're working on. Then you have git this is for removing files from the repository and deleting it from the system. So when you run git rm, then just the same way you can run sudo remove to remove maybe files and directories and stuff like that. The same applies from git. So you want to remove a file from the repository and you want to remove it from the system completely, then you can use that. Git reverse or revert or git revert is used to undo the previous commit. Git reset is used to undo commits by discarding the commits from the current branch. Git clean is used to remove untracked files. Okay, let me illustrate this git cleans and git stars. So for git clean, I'm having this currently we are tracking these 3 files. I want to add another 2 files. We are having about.html and we are having contact .html. Now, there are two untracked files. This one with this with the label UU. These are two untracked files. And you don't want them to be committed when you are changing or when you are doing the commit. So you want to discard them. You want to delete those untracked files, right? So that's why you use the git clean. So if we do git clean, it will remove all the untracked files. So all the untracked files will realize that they will be deleted or they will be removed from your repository. So git clean will simply do away with the untracked files. And stars is, temporarily saves the changes that are committed yet, are not committed. So you don't want to commit. You've done some work, you want to save them, but you don't want them to be committed. You don't want to mark them as a change or as a, you don't need a checkpoint at that place. So you can do git stars. So this one will temporarily save the changes, but that are not yet committed. Yeah, so we have Git versus GitHub. I've touched on them. I think I've talked about them. So Git is a version control, distributed version control system that can be used by these developers, yeah, to track their work on a project. And a GitHub is a cloud platform. GitHub is not Git. They are different. The only maybe similarity, what I can say is that GitHub uses the technology, the Git technology to perform its operations, right? So, but GitHub is a cloud platform. It is a cloud platform that uses Git as its core technology. And it simplifies the process of collaborating on projects and provide a website and more command line tools. Yeah. So you are able to maybe kind of work on a project without maybe running the Git commands. It provide a kind of GUI, right? Whereby you can just click on git merge or merge the changes, then plus the commands behind the scenes. So it's majorly a cloud platform whereby you store your project. So when you create an account and GitHub, you'll be managing your project will be managed somewhere centrally, whereby you can be able to access it remotely, or maybe either on a phone or a laptop or a desktop or any other places. And if you want to learn more about it, I'll share this link whereby you can be able to learn how to use or how to work with the GitHub and the Git as well. So here I'll be illustrating how to work with the Git on VSCode. I'll just that's the only remaining part for today's class. So I'll create this new file. So let me remove it. So we are not going to run the commands now. Now we're going to use them physically or in the VS Code directly. So VS Code usually comes with this source control that performs the operation that are done by the Git. So you don't have to install a Git in extension because it comes with that source control inbuilt. So let me quickly undo everything in this one, then illustrate. So I'll do away with this that folder. Then we start afresh now using VS Code. Okay. Now, when you are working with the VS Code and you want to initialize a repository, you just click on this button, initialize repository, and it will do all that getting it for you. If you want to add files to the staging area, there's this symbol here, this plus symbol. Just click on it. It will add those files to the staging area. If you want to remove them, just click on that minus sign. I don't know if it's minus negative. So just click on that and all of them will be removed from the staging area. If you want to add all of them at once, that means you're running git add all. Then you click on this plus symbol. This will add everything to the staging area. If you want to remove all of them, then you unstage them. Just click that particular symbol. So we'll add all of them. Then we want to commit. So if you want to commit, just give that message, the message that you're providing in the get FMM, just give it up here. Just write that message, then click on this button. Yeah. So you have an option for commit and push. This one, if you are having a remote repository. So if you do commit and push, it will commit that and push it to the cloud. Commit and sync, what that will do, it will check if there are changes in the cloud. It will pull those changes, commit, do the commit, and then push the new changes back to the remote repository. So we are just going to do a commit for now. And the first commit is done. We have these shortcuts over here, yeah, whereby you check on your repositories, so the file history, the contributors, and all those stories. You can check that over there. Okay, so we want to check if that commit we made, if it is available or not. And you can see it over here. There's initial commit. You can compare the working tree with the previous one, or if there's another working tree, you can do the comparison. You can check for commit detail. When was it made? Who made it? What was the hash? Yeah, you can actually check that. And the file history, you can see the file history over there. Branches, if you have many branches, you'll see the branches appear over there and all the commits that were made under those particular branches. If you have any remote repository, you'll be able to see them over here. But right now, we've just made our initial commit, so we still don't have any remote repository. Yeah. If there are stashes, then you'll see them there, tags, a working tree, and search and compare. You'll be able to see all those over there. So we want to push this change to a remote repository using VSCode from VSCode directly. So what that will do, just click on this publish branch. This publish branch will create a repository on GitHub. So we will maybe select if you want a private repository or a public repository, you select maybe public. Then it will push that code, the entire code, which will create a remote repository. Now you see we are having a remote repository named origin, and our code is now pushed to GitHub. If I go to GitHub, then we will now be able to find our code over there, and it is done without much struggle. So you've done our code, and it's now in the cloud. It's in a remote repository somewhere. So VS Code will create for you the remote repositories, will push for you, will push the code over there. So what did I mean by synchronizing a code? So we've pushed this code to GitHub, right? And assuming someone made a change directly from maybe another source or directly on GitHub. So I've added another section. I've added another section here. Then I've done that change. So I've done a commit saying I updated the index, right? Now, if I come back to my Visual Studio Code, if I come back to my Visual Studio Code, let me enlarge it so you can see, and I click on this synchronize changes, right? This will pull all the changes that were in the remote repository to our local machine. Now, let's see if there's another commit that was made. We have just added direct from GitHub. There's another commit called update index. And now we are having update index that was done 37 seconds ago. So that change has been synchronized to our local repository. So that's one of the ways you can work with the VS Code or with the Git on VS Code. Let me check. Yeah, let me check if there's one I'm forgetting. So we've checked on the initialize, we've checked on the various ways whereby you can keep track of the changes, how to add them, how to undo them, how to add the file, to discard the files, and other shortcuts. And now we have the branches. We've illustrated how well we'll be able to see the branches, how to synchronize them. And we have the second set of the questions. Then we can now call it a day. Now, I don't know if there'll be enough time, just 5 minutes to complete the last phase of the questions. So there's another URL for the quizzes on Git. So that's to test on Git.